Val Afuelo Conway. I'm fascinated with what aspects of pop culture you may have missed while you were in the Sea Org. Were you able to watch TV shows, listen to the radio, go to the movies? Did you miss all of the music of the 90s? Did you know about the O.J. Simpson trial? Did you miss the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center? The Columbia Space Shuttle explosion? Monica Lewinsky? No, I didn't really miss any of those things. I joined the Sea Org in 1995. And of course, when 9/11 happened, for example, I remember to this day exactly where I was when I first heard about it that morning. I was in the shower, and somebody was like, "Oh my God, the World Trade Center is blowing up, right?" And I was like, "What?" And that day, I happened to be around the news because I worked in management, Scientology management, and we had some lines to outside news sources. So let me just say in a broad sense, people in the Sea Org can and do read the newspapers and magazines, and they do listen to the radio, maybe not while they're working. And that is where the control is really entered in, is you're doing your job all day and night. So the only time you have to be exposed to outside media is in your own time, and that's a very little amount of time when you're in the Sea Org. That's mornings when you're eating your breakfast. I saw people reading the newspapers then. It's not, we didn't have any TVs, but we did see sports events sometimes, right? Super Bowl or World Series, things like that. They'd put a TV up in the main mess while we were eating, and we could watch parts of the game and whatnot. But we didn't watch the news, right? That never happened. You had, after work, after you were done at night, you could go home, read a book, listen to the radio, something like that. Nobody was particularly stopping anybody from doing that, but I never really was too interested in listening to the radio when I went home at night. I was more interested in going to bed. You were made aware of major events that happened. Monica Lewinsky, not so much. I think that was while I was a staff member that happened. But the O.J. Simpson trial, that sort of thing, I knew that those things were happening, but it's distant. And here, and in addition to what I just said about the scheduling, here's another aspect of this that might give you some insight into the life of a Sea Org member. You don't care. These things that go on in pop culture don't matter to Sea Org members. Really, they just don't care. Because those things that are going on in the real world are what we would call the WOG world, right? That's going on out there. That's the crazy. That's the reactive mind. That's the stuff that's going on that we're trying to deal with. We're trying to change people so that they don't do those things, right? And we felt like we were in a rat race. We felt like we were in not a rat race. We felt like we were in a race against time to change the civilization before these things that go on in pop culture, like 9/11, would destroy us all, right? And that was that. So all those things did, the more amazing or spectacular or horrible the event was, right? Like spectacular in a bad way, right? The more we felt an incentive to work harder to get Scientology to people in the real world so that they would become part of the Scientology world and would stop doing those things. And that was sort of our attitude about that stuff. So we weren't really very interested in getting all the dirty down low on all of the Monica Lewinsky stuff, or the space shuttle blowing up was like, oh yeah, that sucks. Well, guess they're going to go get some new bodies and start all over again. And, yeah, it sucks the space shuttle blew up. That's horrible. And that's about the attitude, right? Is if somebody dies or a bunch of people die, Scientologists just believe in reincarnation. They believe that those people are going to go to a hospital as spiritual beings, pick up new baby bodies, and start all over again. So that has a lot to do with why they might come across like there's not a lot of compassion. It's because they don't think that death is the end of anything. They think it just, person's just going to come back around again. And when you have that point of view and you feel that that's the certainty of how things are, a lot of the significance and importance and tragedy of bad things that happen kind of goes away. You know, it's still a tragedy. I mean, it's not like anybody's jumping up and down because a bunch of kids get shot at a school shooting, but it's not like they're, you know, devastated by that kind of an event, right? The Sea Org just look at that event and go, crazy shooter, probably was on psych drugs, those damn psychs are still at it, and we have to work harder to prevent those psychs from passing out their pills and creating these school shooters, right? And that was literally, that entire thought I just encapsulated is about the entire thought process Scientologists pay to, like, school shootings or bombings or explosions or bad things that happen like that. So, at least in my experience, right, especially as a Sea Org member. Staff members, they're closer to it, they're more in the real world, they're more real, they have more of a realistic attitude about world events because they're more exposed to them. And public Scientologists, well, they're flat out in the real world just as much as anybody else. So you might see shades of what I was talking about with them, but they'll be more understanding and more aware and more in the know or in the loop on what's going on in the world. And that's kind of between those three tiers of public, staff, Sea Org, that's kind of how that breaks down.